It is 3 in the morning, and you are running the simulation again. The moment the group turned, not on the narcissist, on you. You are lying there, cycling through it frame by frame, trying to locate the exact second everything inverted. You were not the one who lied. You were not the one who rewrote the history, manipulated the room, or quietly poisoned the well. You were the one who pointed at the glitch. You said out loud what everyone in that room was already registering on some frequency, and the response you received was not relief. It was not recognition. The gray people turned, slowly and collectively, and aimed their disapproval directly at you, while the source of the actual damage stood behind them, perfectly shielded, almost luminous with satisfaction. That jagged, disorienting sense of injustice you are carrying right now is not confusion. That is your Sentinel Intelligence, receiving accurate data from a corrupted environment. I am Silas, and this is a full Enabler Audit. Because before you can effectively navigate away from a narcissist, you need to understand the architecture of the system that keeps them in power. The flock is not defending the narcissist because they are malicious. They are defending them because their internal operating system is hardwired to prioritize harmony over accuracy. That distinction is not a minor detail. That distinction is the entire mechanism. Here is the first layer of the data. A social group is not simply a collection of individuals. At the neurobiological level, it functions as a living organism with its own survival drive. Research into social cohesion identifies something called group homeostasis, the unconscious collective pressure a system exerts to maintain its current state. Your amygdala, the radar of your individual brain, is calibrated to detect personal threats, but a group's collective nervous system is calibrated to detect threats to the group itself. And this is precisely where the inversion occurs. The narcissist, over time, has embedded themselves into the load-bearing architecture of the group. They have become a structural node. They supply the charisma that attracts new members. They supply the drama that provides the group with a shared enemy. They supply the hierarchy that tells everyone else where they stand. Remove that node, and the entire machine is forced to restructure. That is metabolically expensive. That is psychologically destabilizing to a low-resolution OS. So when you, the Sentinel, point at the glitch, you are not simply challenging a person. You are triggering the group's survival response. To their system, the one who causes disruption by speaking the truth registers as a greater threat than the one who causes damage by living the lie. The machine will protect the broken gear before it will acknowledge the gear is broken. That brings us to the audit itself. The flock is not a monolith. It is composed of distinct node types, and your Sentinel radar needs to distinguish between them with precision. Misreading the node type is how you waste energy on people who cannot receive your signal, and miss the ones who might eventually be reachable. The first node is the low-resolution sleeper, the naive enabler. They are arguably the most frustrating to process because your instinct is to assume they are choosing ignorance. They are not. Their hardware does not carry the processing capacity for high-accuracy pattern detection. When you observe the narcissist, your prefrontal cortex is cross-referencing their words against their behavioral history, flagging micro-inconsistencies, running probability models on intent. The low-res sleeper is not running that process. Their scan terminates at the surface UI. They register the charm, the confidence, the performed generosity, and their system files it as a complete picture. The glitches you detect in real time are not things they are suppressing. They are things that are genuinely invisible at their resolution. When they defend the narcissist, they are reporting what their hardware actually processed. The tragedy is that explaining what you see to a low-res sleeper is like describing color to someone who has only ever experienced grayscale. The data does not translate. You can hold compassion for this node type and still accept that they cannot be your witness. They do not have the equipment. The second node is the Pisatini price patch. The fearful enabler. This one is more painful to identify because this person can actually see the glitch. Their mirror neurons are firing. Their gut is transmitting accurate signals. But their system has made a calculated decision to suppress that data in favor of self-preservation. Here is what is happening inside them at the neurological level. When they witness the narcissist's behavior, their amygdala flags it as a threat. Then a second process activates, a threat assessment of a different kind. If I stand next to the sentinel, if I validate what they are pointing at, I become the next target. Their nervous system, frequently shaped by early environments where speaking the truth carried consequences, runs this calculation faster than conscious thought. They sacrifice you not out of hatred, but because their system is operating in power-save mode, running on the bare minimum of courage required to keep themselves off the radar. The cruelest feature of this node type is that they will often find subtle ways to signal their guilt afterward. A private message, a vague comment, a look held a half-second too long across the room. They want you to know that they know. They are simply not willing to pay the price of saying so in the open. Do not let that private signal rehabilitate them in your assessment. Empathy is not the same as access. You can understand the calculation they made and still recognize that they are not a safe node in your network. Those are not contradictory conclusions. The third node requires the most clinical detachment to process accurately. Because your instinct will be to extend good faith to it. This is the secondary parasite. The malignant enabler. Unlike the first two nodes, this one is not confused and they are not afraid. They are invested. The narcissist operates as a power source, and the secondary parasite has positioned themselves close enough to that source to feed off the overflow. Status by proximity, access to resources, permission to behave badly under the cover of a larger chaos. These nodes are not being manipulated into defending the narcissist. They are co-processors in the same system. They understand at some operational level that your high-fidelity integrity is a direct threat to their arrangement. If the narcissist is exposed, the secondary parasite loses their power source. If the group's baseline for honesty rises, the secondary parasite cannot survive in that environment. So when the smear campaign begins, when the narrative gets rewritten to cast you as the aggressor, the secondary parasite is not a passive participant. They are an active author. Recognize them for what they are. Not a confused friend, not a frightened bystander. A node that has made a deliberate choice to protect their low-status shortcuts over the integrity of the truth. That is not a relationship you repair. That is a threat you log and move away from cleanly. Now the tactical layer. Stop filing bug reports. If you have already transmitted the truth to this group, clearly and directly, and they responded by closing ranks around the glitch, the transmission is complete. Every additional attempt to explain, to prove, to provide evidence, is being received by their system as malware. It is not landing as information. It is being processed as aggression, and it is giving them material to reinforce the narrative they have already chosen. Your continued transmission is not changing their minds. It is depleting your signal. The silence you feel when you stop explaining yourself is not defeat. That is the sound of your energy returning to you. Map the room accurately, without emotional expectation attached to the results. Know who is a sleeper, who is a patch, and who is a parasite. This is not about assigning moral weight. This is about calibrating your Sentinel Radar, so you stop expecting high-resolution responses from low-resolution hardware. Emotional expectation without accurate data is the primary mechanism by which Sentinels exhaust themselves inside corrupted systems. And when the mapping is complete, execute the sovereign departure. If the system is structurally committed to protecting the glitch, if the sleepers cannot see, the patches will not act, and the parasites are actively hostile, then this environment is no longer viable for a high-resolution mind. You do not repair a corrupted network by remaining inside it. You locate a new network, one built on signal rather than noise. The departure is not a loss, it is a security upgrade. Carry this with you when you go. A group that requires a lie to hold itself together is already in the process of collapse. You did not destroy that group by pointing at the glitch. The glitch was always going to destroy it. You simply saw it first. If you have ever been expelled from a flock for refusing to look the other way, drop a sheep and a shield in the comments. Let the other outliers find each other in the thread. Because being removed from a corrupted system is not rejection. It is the system correctly identifying that your standards are incompatible with its dysfunction. That is not something to grieve. That is a data point to file with precision. Stay rare, Silas out.